Hi, Cookie Kid. Here's another great story for you today. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village by the edge of a vast forest, there lived a cheerful little girl named Red Riding Hood. Everyone called her this because she always wore a bright red cloak with a hood, a special gift from her beloved grandmother. She loved her red cloak so much that she wore it every day, whether she was helping her mother in the garden or playing with her friends in the village. One sunny morning, Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Red Riding Hood, your grandmother isn't feeling well, and I want you to take this basket of food to her. There's nuts, fruits, and some of her favorite treats inside. I'm sure it will cheer her up." Red Riding Hood's eyes lit up with excitement. "I'd love to visit grandmother," she exclaimed. "I'll take the basket right away." Her mother handed her the wicker basket, but then her face grew serious. "Listen carefully, Red Riding Hood. Grandmother lives deep in the forest, so I need you to be very careful. Stay on the path and don't talk to strangers. The forest can be dangerous." "I promise, Mother," Red Riding Hood said earnestly. "I won't talk to anyone, and I'll stay on the path." With a wave goodbye, Red Riding Hood set off through the village, her red cloak fluttering behind her. She didn't notice the shadowy figure watching her from the trees as she entered the forest. A big, bad wolf with sharp eyes and even sharper teeth. The path through the forest was narrow and winding, but Red Riding Hood wasn't scared. She skipped along happily, humming to herself as she admired the tall trees, the colourful flowers, and the birds singing in the branches. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow on the forest floor, and Red Riding Hood felt like she was in a magical world. After a while, she spotted a patch of bright wildflowers growing just off the path. "Oh, grandmother would love these flowers," she thought. "I'll pick a few for her. It will make her so happy." But as soon as she stepped off the path to gather the flowers, a smooth, deep voice called out from behind her. "Well, hello there, little girl. Where are you off to on this fine day?" Red Riding Hood turned around and saw a large wolf standing a few feet away, his fur dark and sleek, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. She felt a little uneasy, but she remembered to be polite. "Good morning," she said, clutching the basket tightly. "And where are you going? All by yourself, my dear?" the wolf asked with a friendly smile that showed his sharp teeth. "I'm going to visit my grandmother," Red Riding Hood replied, "and I'm bringing her this basket of food." The wolf's eyes lit up with interest. "Your grandmother, you say? How lovely! And where does she live, if I may ask?" For a moment, Red Riding Hood hesitated, remembering her mother's warning. But then she thought, "He seems nice enough, and he's just curious." So she answered, "She lives in a little cottage at the edge of the forest, just past the big oak tree." The wolf's grin widened, revealing more of his sharp teeth. "What a coincidence! I know exactly where that is. Why don't you pick some more flowers for your grandmother? She'll love them, and it'll make her so happy." Red Riding Hood nodded eagerly. "That's a great idea." She turned back to the flowers and began gathering a bouquet. But while she was distracted, the wolf crept silently away through the trees, plotting his next move. He knew that if he hurried, he could reach the grandmother's house before Red Riding Hood. The wolf's swift legs carried him through the forest, and soon he reached the small cottage where Red Riding Hood's grandmother lived. He knocked on the door, disguising his voice to sound sweet and kind. "Who's there?" called the grandmother from her bed. Her voice sounded tired and weak. "It's me, Red Riding Hood," the wolf replied in his most charming tone. "I've brought you some food." "Come in, dear," said the grandmother. She had no idea that danger was lurking just outside her door. The wolf pushed open the door and sprang into the room. Before the grandmother had time to react, he leapt at her and gobbled her up in one big bite. He licked his lips and let out a satisfied sigh. "Now, that was a tasty meal," he murmured. But the wolf wasn't done yet. He slipped into the grandmother's nightgown and climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to his chin. He looked at himself in the small mirror by the bed and grinned wickedly. "Now I'll wait for Red Riding Hood," he said to himself, settling into the pillows. A little while later, Red Riding Hood arrived at her grandmother's house. She noticed that the front door was slightly open, which struck her as odd. "Grandmother," she called softly as she stepped inside. The cosy little cottage seemed darker than usual, and there was something strange about the figure lying in bed. "Grandmother, it's me, Red Riding Hood," she said, taking a step closer to the bed. The wolf, hidden beneath the covers, cleared his throat and tried to sound like the grandmother. "Come closer, my dear," he said, disguising his voice. Red Riding Hood hesitated, but then she moved closer to the bed. As she approached, she noticed that grandmother looked a little different. "Grandmother, what big ears you have," she exclaimed, her brow furrowing with confusion. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," the wolf replied. "And grandmother, what big eyes you have," Red Riding Hood said, feeling a shiver run down her spine. "All the better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf, trying not to smile too widely. Red Riding Hood stepped even closer, trying to ignore the strange feeling in her stomach. "But grandmother, what big teeth you have." The wolf couldn't help it. He grinned, revealing all his sharp teeth. "All the better to eat you with," he roared, leaping out of bed and lunging at Red Riding Hood. Red Riding Hood screamed and tried to run, but the wolf was too quick. Just as he was about to grab her, a loud thud came from the door, and it burst open. A huntsman who had been passing by heard the scream and rushed into the cottage with his axe in hand. "Get away from her, you beast!" the huntsman shouted, raising his axe. The wolf turned, snarling at the huntsman, but he knew he was outmatched. He tried to lunge at Red Riding Hood one last time, but the huntsman quickly swung his axe, knocking the wolf to the ground. With the wolf subdued, the huntsman acted fast. Red Riding Hood, still trembling, ran to the huntsman and hugged him tightly. Thank you for saving me," she cried, tears of relief in her eyes. "But my grandmother, the wolf ate her." "Don't worry, little one," the huntsman said to Red Riding Hood. "Sometimes the wolf doesn't swallow his food right away." He carefully took a knife from his belt and with a steady hand made a cut in the wolf's belly. To Red Riding Hood's great relief, out popped her grandmother, unharmed but very shaken. The grandmother hugged her granddaughter tightly, grateful to be safe again. The huntsman then tied up the weakened wolf and carried him deep into the forest, far away from the village, ensuring that he wouldn't bother anyone ever again. That afternoon, Red Riding Hood, her grandmother, and the huntsman sat together in the warm, cosy cottage. The grandmother, still a little pale, sipped tea while Red Riding Hood arranged the wildflowers in a vase. The huntsman joined them for a small meal of bread, honey, and tea, and the three of them shared stories by the crackling fireplace. "I'm so sorry, grandmother," Red Riding Hood said, looking down at her hands. "I should have listened to Mother. I shouldn't have talked to the wolf, and I shouldn't have left the path." Her grandmother reached out and patted her hand gently. "We all make mistakes, my dear," she said kindly. "But what matters is that you've learned from them. Next time, you'll know to be more careful and to trust your instincts." The huntsman nodded in agreement. The world can be a dangerous place, but as long as you remember to stay on the right path and avoid strangers, you'll be much safer. Red Riding Hood promised them both that she would be wiser in the future. "I'll never stray from the path again, and I'll be sure to ask for help if I ever feel unsure." From that day on, Red Riding Hood kept her promise. She continued to visit her grandmother often, always staying on the safe path and keeping an eye out for anything suspicious. The villagers heard about the wolf's defeat and praised Red Riding Hood for her bravery and the huntsman for his quick thinking. As for the grandmother, she grew stronger each day and looked forward to her granddaughter's visits. She always had a cup of tea and a slice of cake ready whenever Red Riding Hood came knocking at the door. The huntsman, too, became a regular visitor at the cottage, checking in on the grandmother and sharing tales of his adventures in the forest. He and Red Riding Hood became good friends, and he taught her how to read animal tracks and spot signs of trouble in the woods. And as for the big bad wolf, he never returned to that part of the forest again. The other animals in the woods whispered about his defeat, and he soon became a cautionary tale for anyone thinking of causing trouble. Red Riding Hood, her grandmother, and the huntsman lived peacefully, always remembering the adventure that had brought them closer together. Red Riding Hood's courage, the grandmother's love, and the huntsman's bravery ensured that their story ended happily. And they all lived happily ever after, knowing that while the world might be full of dangers, kindness, courage, a little bit of help from friends could make it safe once again.